Good evening, Chiefs Kingdom. Matt Derrick, Chiefs Digest here. Norman, am I going to be on time? No, of course not. 7:05. That's ball game time, right? I mean, that's like MLB time that I'm on right here. Where's Brandon? Brandon has not been here in a while, keeping me on check on the time. But I tell you what, I was hoping that somebody was going to help me out and lead with Holiday Touchdown, the Hallmark movie. So, Joe, thank you very, very much. I don't have to start out with that tonight about what you want to talk about. I know everybody wants to talk about the Hallmark Holiday Touchdown, Chiefs Christmas Story. I think is that what I said it was called. Man, it's good stuff. I mean, we are definitely in the downtime of the NFL season when the Hallmark holiday movie press release comes out to let you know that they're going to be shooting a Christmas movie in Kansas City in July to get you all ready for the holidays. So I am pretty pumped up. I think we're going to have a pretty excited July. I can only assume I'll be in St. Joe and maybe we'll miss most of the shooting, but that's what we got, right? I mean, what is there to worry about right now in Chiefs Kingdom except when I'm going to show up for the live stream and what's going on with the Chiefs holiday movie? I mean, you can't get a bigger deal than that. I mean, and hey, it's Hallmark, it's Kansas City, it's very cool. When I got the press release and I saw Chiefs and Hallmark, I thought, hey, this is going to be great. It's going to be like an exclusive holiday ornament. Collect those. I've got plenty of those from over the years. I mean, I've got my Marcus Allen. I've got my Joe Montana Chiefs 19 Hallmark ornament from when I was a kid. But it's a Hallmark movie. And I know how many of you out there absolutely love your holiday Hallmark movies. So I am not hating on the holiday movies, especially since, like Gary says, I want you to show your support by subscribing and hitting the like on the YouTube channel. So I will never hate on Hallmark holiday movies. They are absolutely terrific. So no hating on that. Although, let's see, we're losing something here. Apparently, I stopped my camera on accident, so apologize, everybody. But as usual, whatever questions you got, there's not a ton of things to talk about. Obviously, Chiefs made the Isaiah Buggs move. That is no surprise. That was expected to be the direction that everything went. I couldn't imagine that there would be information that would come to light that would make the Chiefs consider things. I mean, there is a reality to the football business that talent and ability get you a further extension of things that can be going on in your life. I mean, if Rashee Rice was another player, chance, there's a level at which he could play in which you couldn't put up with what was going on in Rashee's life there for a while. I mean, Isaiah Buggs kind of had the same experience. Isaiah was too far down in the depth chart to be creating that much drama. So I figured it was probably very unlikely that the Chiefs were going to keep him around. I think a big part of the delay was just this time of year. Everybody's on vacation. Everybody's on a break. There was no real urgency to deal with it. You're not really in a race to replace the roster spot. Obviously, the Chiefs haven't really made a move at that direction yet that I've seen to fill the spot. So wouldn't be surprised if it gets close to training camp. I mean, there could be somebody on their mind, somebody that they've released of recently that they'll bring back, or they had another couple of tryout players in over the mandatory mini camp. They signed one of those players, Alex Gubner. So, there's a lot of different directions that they could go, but didn't really expect that Buggs was going to stick around. So that page has been turned. Chiefs are moving on. Hope everything works out for Isaiah. I hope it works out for everybody who's involved in the case. The charges are very, very ugly. I hope that they, in reality, are not that bad. I hope that everybody involved in the situation is safe and healthy, but Chiefs did the right thing. I mean, they needed to move on, and they have. So, there's obviously some stadium stuff continuing to go on. Don't know if anybody has any questions about that. I'll let you fire away. Nick and I did our roster breakdown. If you haven't had a chance to listen to that yet, that's over on 41 is the mic, and you can see that here on the YouTube channel as well. my story and just my breakdown written out for the roster breakdown of where the Chiefs kind of stand right now is over on Chiefs Digest. So if you have any questions about that, glad to answer them. Anything else going on in the kingdom? I can tell you what I know about holiday, Christmas movies, you name it. So, and just appreciate everybody joining us once again. I know it's a slow time of year, so we'll see how many questions we get tonight. The night might be the night that might not be as many people. It is a warm night here in Kansas City. Warm couple of days. I know it is throughout the Midwest. I hope everybody is safe, especially our friends up north. There's been some devastating flooding in some places in addition to the hot weather. So I hope everybody is safe and taking care of themselves. So Luttrell, I have not gotten the update yet from Nick about when his grocery store plan was today. So I do not know if he has gone already. He's been trying to do that of late, so he can stick around for the questions as long as possible, but we will see. But I have not talked to him today, so I do not know. Now you see why Belichick is out of coaching. You know what? Whatever gets you through life, man. Whatever gets you through. I guess that's the only thing we can say. Good for Bill, I guess. Let's get to a question. Gary, is Worthy beginning to work out with Mahomes on off time to build chemistry? I'm assuming not right now because as far as I know, Patrick is still in Europe. I mean, I think he's left Portugal. Does anybody have a line on where Patrick was going next? I can't remember if he's already been to the Cannes Film Festival or was going to Cannes next. Tell you what, he and Travis are having the time of their lives. And I've had a couple of people ask me if, this is a distraction, going, doing all these things and going around the world and all of this kind of stuff. And honestly, I mean, no, I mean, it's not a big deal at all. This is the time of year that players do exactly this. It's just that you usually don't hear about it. A lot of players will be going on vacation. They're going to be on islands. I mean, there'll be deep sea fishing. You name it. I mean, they'll be all over the world, going to Thailand. I mean, I've known people, players just absolutely going all over the place. So does not surprise me at all that, that's what they're doing. That's what they're enjoying. It's their time off. It's their last chance to have some fun before the season starts. I mean, they're not going to have this kind of time off again and until the bye week. You get a little bit of time then, but outside of that, I mean, if you're the Chiefs, this is the last chance you're going to get to do anything until late February, early March. So for them and their lifestyles, hey, this is what everybody does. So no concerns whatsoever. They're both going to be ready, when it comes to training camp time. There's no doubt about that. They always have been. I trust that they always will. Both these guys certainly have more energy than I do. I mean, I probably couldn't do some of the things that they do even when I was their age, much less now. But no, I have zero concerns whatsoever about the distractions that these guys have. Both of them understand that the off season is for the off season, that you do everything else in your life. You shoot commercials if you're a big star. You shoot movies and TV shows if you're a big star. You go around the world and go to concerts and events and sporting events if you're a big star. Lots of guys do it. I mean, Tom Brady's done. I mean, you go back and look at the stuff that he did during his off seasons. This is a very odd way, Gary, of being able to answer your question about Xavier Worthy. But my digression there about just talking about the distractions off the field. And Mahomes, to my knowledge, isn't really available right now with all the things that he's doing. So now, when will that happen? I mean, will Worthy and Mahomes get together anytime before training camp starts? And remember, for both those guys, they're going to be reporting to camp earlier than everybody else. The rookies and quarterbacks report on July 16th, and there's that rookie mini camp, the 17th, 18th, and 19th. not open to the public. It's closed practices. But 2 of those practices, Mahomes will be there. He'll be going through everything. So there's going to be 2 days right there for Mahomes and Xavier to Worthy to work. They obviously did a little bit back in April and May before the injury. So, they don't have a cold start. They've had a little bit of time to work. Now, like I said, after probably the 4th of July holiday, will Mahomes be getting into town and have some time to throw with some guys before training camp starts? Maybe. Couldn't hurt. But, they will definitely get some time in on those first couple of days of the rookie mini camp to get together and work out on the field. So, it's not ideal, but it'll be at least something so they're not going in flat out cold into training camp. They'll have the kind of a couple of days to work off the rust. And I imagine that Worthy is going to take every chance that he's got to catch with Mahomes. And I think Mahomes will take every chance he's got to throw to him just so that they can kind of start getting on the same page and everything. It is what it is, and I think it also comes back to, my original expectations for Worthy. And just to remember, he's a rookie in an Andy Reid offense. Last year, Rashee Rice and how the Chiefs used him and really kind of forced him into the lineup at the end of the season and forced the ball to him was out of character. That's something that the Chiefs kind of did in desperation. Normally they bring along rookie receivers more slowly than that. I don't expect that Xavier Worthy is going to be a full-time starter. He might surprise me. The injury, could it delay his development? I don't know that it necessarily will. It certainly is not an advantage. You'd love to have had him out there. But Chiefs all along were planning on just making sure that they had Xavier Worthy healthy for when they get to camp. And it looks like they're going to have that. So let's see what happens once they get up there. We'll be able to tell you when they get to the rookie mini camp how things are going and if Worthy's on the field. So July 17th, that's kind of the day to circle. That's going to be the first day that the rookies and quarterbacks are on the field in St. Joe. And we're going to be able to give you the first eyes on Worthy and Mahomes working together. Gary, does the holiday movie involve any Chiefs players? And for those of you who don't know, I'll pull it up here if you have not heard the story. But yes, the Chiefs announced today, along with Hallmark and Skydance Sports, which is a production outfit. They've been around for a little while. They did Good Rivals, did the movie Air. They're the ones that are working on the Jerry Jones documentary for Netflix. They're also, they're the production company that's doing the Hard Knocks off season with the New York Giants. So they've got some sports background. And I guess they were also, and now I guess this is where, it could come in because, they were one of the production companies involved in doing the Jason Kelce documentary for Amazon Prime. So there is a Kelce family background there, at least for this movie. And I'll just flat out tell you, here it is. It's Kansas City Chiefs and Hallmark teaming up with the NFL and Skydance Sports for a holiday movie and partnership. I can't read this. This is just too promotional. But Tyler Hines, if that means anything to you. Hunter King, if that means anything to you. Ed Begley Jr. will be playing a grandfather in this movie, and that means something to him because Ed Begley Jr. has been around forever. But the new original movie, Holiday Touchdown, A Chiefs Love Story. Movie begins production next month and will film entirely in Kansas City, Missouri locations, including GEHA Field and Arrowhead Stadium, supposedly marking the first time the loudest stadium in the world has been used as a filming location in a Hallmark movie. I say supposedly, man, the Chiefs would know if it's ever been used in a Hallmark movie. So it will be the first time that it's been used in a Hallmark movie. Here's the description, and the description's pretty entertaining to me. In Holiday Touchdown, A Chiefs Love Story, Alana Higman is sure that her family's lifelong history as a Kansas City Chiefs superfans makes them a front runner to win the team's Fan of the Year contest. Derrick, not me, director of fan engagement, is tasked with evaluating how Alana and her family stack up against the other two finalists. As the pair spends time together, it's clear that there's a spark between them, but when her grandfather's vintage Chiefs good luck winter hat goes missing, Alana begins to doubt everything she believed about fate, destiny, and even questions her future with Derrick, unless, that is, a little Christmas magic can throw a Hail Mary. This film marks the ultimate celebration of a long-standing collaboration between the two pioneering KC brands. There you go. So that is the plot of Holiday Touchdown, a Chiefs love story. So now you know what that is. How involved will the Chiefs be? I mean, we know that they're shooting at Arrowhead Stadium. How much the team will be involved? I mean, obviously logos. I mean, it's an NFL partnership, so there'll be a lot of branding involved in this. That'll be nice. I mean, usually sometimes you see these movies and, without an NFL license and an NFL involvement, it would be the Kansas City Sharks or the Twisters or something that would be the team. In this case, it's going to be a real NFL story. Press release doesn't say anything about NFL players or stars getting involved. Obviously, like I said, I mean, there's at least a tangent connection between the Kelce family and the production company. So could Travis be involved? I mean, I'm assuming that Travis is shooting higher and wants to be involved in bigger name projects than a Hallmark movie. But I'm not trying to bash a Hallmark movie here, but Travis just, shot the TV, the Ryan Murphy TV series. Ryan Murphy is a big deal. So I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming Travis is, shooting for bigger stages, but hey, the NFL and the Chiefs are involved. Maybe there's going to be some some favors done. We'll see what happens. But now, could there be cameos by, maybe other Chiefs players? Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I mean, I just think, for Hallmark, I mean, you usually have to pay for the big names. So if you want Kelce or Mahomes involved, I'm just guessing they might be a little bit out of the budget of a Hallmark movie, but there might be some other Chiefs players that make some cameos. So we'll see. And maybe people just want to do it for fun. So we'll see. I don't know, but I'm just having some fun with it. Like I said, I'm not hating on Hallmark. Hallmark is a local Kansas City company. I have been a Hallmark guy for years, so I'm loyal to the Hallmark brand. So I ain't bashing or hating it. I'm just trying to have some fun with it. And this sounds like it could be uproariously hilarious. So we'll see what happens. Cody, Charles Goldman said that Toney had surgery on his pec. Can you confirm or deny that? Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs have not flat out come out and said it, but yes, Joe Toney did have surgery on his pec. That has been why he has been out this entire time. The timeline for the recovery from the surgery was typically about 3 months, and my understanding is that, yeah, he had it after the season. I don't believe he may have had it until late February or early March. I don't know if I ever saw the official date on that. But yes, he did have the surgery. Like I said, it was expected to be about a 3-month turnaround for the recovery, which was why the Chiefs all along were saying beginning of training camp. You saw Andy Reid back off a little bit on that at the end of OTAs and the mini camp. Saying, we'll see, it could be that they ramp him up slowly, and that would not be a surprise when the Chiefs have had other players coming off surgery that didn't do anything during offseason workouts. We've seen them breathing back slowly, sometimes starting on the PUP list. Last year, even remember, we had Pacheco who started training camp in the yellow jersey once he did get on the field. So if Joe Toney, we'll see when he arrives. He would have the opportunity to arrive if he wants to with the rookies and quarterbacks. Injured players can report early. So if he wants to show up for that rookie mini camp and report on July 16th and take part in that mini camp as an injured player just to get the rust knocked off, he can do that. If not, obviously July 19th is the official report date. I guess July 18th, I guess, is going to be the official report date for the veterans. So he could report then, but I'm not expecting. We'll see what happens. But if Joe Toney started training camp on the PUP list, would not be a huge surprise at all. So I wouldn't be nervous if that happens. Wouldn't be nervous if he's just even sitting out or working his way back very slowly. Remember, no OTA, so he's got a ton of rust to knock off. Joe's a pro, been around the block a few times. No concerns there. You're just hoping that there's no setback of anything of that nature. I didn't get the sense from Andy that was a concern. I think the only concern coming out of the OTAs was just simply that he's going to have no work, and they just want to make sure that he's 100% when he gets on the field. They don't want him to have any setbacks. So I would expect they're going to bring him in slowly. I mean, if he's a full participant from day one, be very impressed, but Chiefs don't normally do that. So that's just my only caveat is don't be worried if Joe Toney is on the PUP list or a limited participant to start practice. That would be pretty standard for the Chiefs for a guy coming back from a surgery like that. So Joe, noting Joe Delaney 40 years ago, June 29th, because I thought it was earlier than 1984. I thought it was earlier. Am I mistaken about that, Joe? Man, I was thinking it was like 82, right? Let me just double check and make sure. 83. It was in between for both of us. I still remember where I was that day. It was a very, very sad day for Chiefs fans. Joe was my age when he passed away. I was 10 years old, and he was definitely one of my favorite Chiefs. I just loved the way he ran. He only got those 2 seasons. He had that 1,000-yard season as a rookie in '81, and I just loved the way he played. He was injured in year 2 and didn't have the year that he wanted to, but seemed like there were such great things for him. And my sad memory there, I just remember I was outside playing in the backyard, and the radio came on, and they said that there was a report that a Chiefs player had died in an accident and a drowning. And I was just like, it was just one of those things that you get, those weird feelings. And I was just like, I just remember thinking to myself, I just don't let it be Joe Delaney. And that was. And so one of those moments you just never forget where you are. Sad day in Chiefs history. Yep, Joe, 41 years ago. And I don't think we'll ever forget Joe Delaney. Gary, 21st started training camp, and that's the official start for the veterans. That's the first public practice. They have on the 20th, they've got the first day. That's when they will go through and do all their testing and everything. It's the official report is the 19th. I think I was getting my dates all mixed up earlier. July 16th is the report date for quarterbacks, rookies, and injured players who are coming to take part in the training camp. 17th, 18th, and 19th is that mini camp for the rookies and the quarterbacks. The last day of that mini camp, the 19th, is when the players report. Player report time is going to be at night again, so they don't have to be there. Basically, they don't have to be there really, truly, officially. Nobody's doing a check on anybody until the morning when they start doing their testing and doing the medicals and doing the fitness test and all that kind of stuff. Nobody's really looking for anybody until then. I think the official report time is going to be 9 or 10 o'clock at night. Wouldn't be surprised if we don't see much. Usually in the past, there's always been a big deal about report day, and we get to talk to a few of the players as they're coming in, and we get to see them moving all their stuff in, because the time used to be 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon when they all had to report. Andy's changed that. So I think he's probably changed it so that we won't be out there in the middle of the afternoon getting video of everybody coming in, and they can kind of do it more low key. So they do have a late check-in time now into the dorms in St. Joe on the Western Missouri campus. So might not be as a big deal as it's been in the past, but that's at least the 19th is when the players arrive. 20th is their first day of going through testing and everything. And then 21st will be the open practice on the field. So you're marking your calendars now. Luttrell, I think this has been tackled before, but any favorite barbecue joints in KC? About to travel through that area? Luttrell, let me know where you're from. I didn't realize you weren't here in KC. You know what? I've never talked about barbecue on the show. I guess I should probably wait until Nick gets here so you can get both of us. So, I might do that. Just go ahead and bring the question back lateral when Nick gets in. Then you can get both of our opinions. But one, I mean, there's no bad barbecue in Kansas City. I would say don't go to a national chain if you're coming to Kansas City. Not gonna name anybody and bash them, but bless your heart, there's just no reason to go to a national chain. There's 40, 60 odd, local Kansas City restaurants that make barbecue. Any of them are good. So I've never been to a bad barbecue place in Kansas City that I can think of. Like I said, not going to go to a national chain, but that's my thing. So you can go to those anywhere. Just don't go to one of those in KC. Gary, I'm not a big star. I don't know what that is, but Greg and Holly, my 40 time, don't lie. Let's face it. Between my size and my knee surgeries, I have not run a 40 in a long time. And even when I did, I was slow. So, I'm old enough that, we had to run 100 yards. We didn't do as many 40s back then. We just did the 100 yards. My 100-yard time was bad. So I don't even remember. I want to say like a good 100 time for me might have been 25 seconds. I have always been slow. Now that said, I was always better live. They would clock us in baseball. I remember this for sure. They would clock us to see how fast we were to first base. And I was like the slowest guy on the team when they just clocked us, in practice. And in games, I was like average. See, I was a game time player. I got more juiced up under the lights. See, talk about practice. I'm a game time player. So I won't lie about that. I will tell you I'm slow though. So I'm very slow. Lawrence, should we worry about linebacker depth? Seems like one injury and we're in trouble. I'll be honest, Lawrence, I would not worry. I don't think that you're in trouble. I actually like the linebacker group. In my breakdown, I had the Chiefs keeping 5 linebackers. I think they could keep 6 and be pretty comfortable. Cole Christensen spent time on the roster in the last couple of seasons. He is perfectly serviceable linebacker. And, and certainly you look at, the Chiefs have had some years, in the last few years, like a guy like Darius Harris was your number 4 guy. And Darius was very flexible and, he could play a lot of different positions. I don't think there's a huge difference between like a Darius and a Cole Christensen. Jack Cochran, might even be a little upgrade over Darius. I think he's got a little bit more flexibility. Darius, I think, would give the advantage as far as athleticism goes. Cochran, I think, maybe a little bit more sure-handed tackler. But, there's a chance that even Cochran, is going to be, battling for a roster spot. I really like Cam Jones. Liked Cam Jones in training camp last year before he got, dinged up a little bit. Got himself ready. Remember, he had the 12 total tackles in that Week 18 game in the finale, 11 solo tackles in that game. Chiefs have been testing him out at the Mike linebacker as well as the 2 outside positions, so he's got a lot of low flexibility. But Cam Jones, when we're talking about a player like that, we were talking about Darius Harris a few years ago being maybe your backup Mike at times. Cam, I'm talking about him getting some snaps at Mike. He'd be your 4th Mike linebacker behind Bolton, Tranquil, Cochran before you'd get to Jones. They got a lot of flexibility there. I love the starting lineup with Bolton, Chenal, and Tranquil. If you get an injury, you have a Cam Jones. You've got a Jack Cochran. I think those are 2 solid players. And like I said, I think Cole Christensen is at least a replacement level player. I don't think that there's a huge drop off there. He's not, is he, like I said, is he a below average player, a below average replacement player? No, I think he's a little better than that. And Nick obviously is going to be a big fan of Curtis Jacobs because every Jacobs can play. Let's face it. That's what we all know. So I'm really excited to see Curtis Jacobs. I'm excited to see him when the pads come on. I was impressed with how he moved. he was really impressive in pass coverage too. He had at least, I know he had one, maybe two interceptions during OTAs that we saw. I was really impressed. So I don't think that the Chiefs are in bad shape there, Lawrence. I like their linebacker depth. I think it's one of the better positions that they are. I think they need to have more than one injury before it becomes a problem. I think they need to have two or three before I'd be concerned. I think that's a decent group, so I would not be concerned. And one person I am never concerned about is our friend coming in now, the one and only Nick Jacobs. Nick, how are you doing tonight?
I bet there's another Nick Jacobs out there, and he owes somebody money, so it's definitely not me if there's somebody that owes money. I'm good, Matt. How about yourself?
I cannot complain. I mean, it is hot outside, but I am in the relatively cool indoors with air conditioning. So I mean, I feel okay, Nick.
Outstanding, Matt. That's what I want to hear whenever I come in 30 minutes into a show.
You get to start with, I mean, unless you have any opening remarks that you got.
Well, the reason I'm late is I was working on my audition tape for whatever the movie's called.
Holiday Touchdown, a Chiefs love story.
Yes, that's the one. I'm hoping to be patron number 2 in the line at Joe's Kansas City, or maybe purchasing a customized jersey in the team shop. So I mean, I've got range, Matt. I can be a background actor.
I'm having flashbacks here because, correct me if I'm wrong, but
you're corrected. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, if I'm not mistaken, Hallmark shot a Christmas movie here a few years ago, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they shot like a scene outside. I think it was Anador's Chocolates over in like Fairway and everything.
Okay.
And it was also a summer shoot, so they had to make it look like it was Christmas in July. I mean, that's going to be the real challenge here, Nick, is that you're going to have to look like it's Christmas in July. Do you have that kind of acting range?
I mean, as long as you don't put me in an insane hot jacket, and there's so many takes that I have to ask somebody for a sweat rag because I'm burning up in 90 to 100 degree heat. Other than that, I think I can navigate it, Matt. I
have not looked yet. I don't know. Did you read the press release closely?
Oh, of course I read the press release. I know the people in the movie. I looked up all their careers, and I know 2 or 3.
Well, I mean, I know
the lead gentleman actor of the Fan Experience. He's in Letterkenny. Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
And then Ed Begley Jr. Obviously, everybody knows him. I know him from Meet the Applegates, among many other movies that he's involved in. And he's a She-Devil with Roseanne back in the late 80s.
Ed Begley Jr., big star. See, I mean, he's been around my entire life. See, so I remember he was on, when I was 8 years old, he would have been on Battlestar Galactica in 1980. See, so we're going back a ways there. And St. Elsewhere for anybody else, old 80s kids. There you go. Derrick, director of fan engagement for the Chiefs. That's the story I want to do during training camp, Nick.
Okay.
I need to find his real life equivalent into a story and follow this, because I mean, I'm hoping that there's some De Niro level, method acting thing going on here where, your Letterkenny guy is coming in and, following around the director of fan engagement for a couple of weeks to kind of get into the character and get into the role. And then I want to see afterwards if the director of fan engagement role is as, glamorous in real life as it looks like in the Hallmark movie.
Well, I mean, I know the VP of fan experience is Jane Martin. So I don't remember who the director is.
See, that's
Jane. I originally want to say I thought she used to be the director, and then they bumped her over to VP. I'm looking through the front office thing because I know everybody's very intrigued by this.
There's a director of fan experience.
Mm-hmm.
So there maybe not be a complete and total analog.
I think they've been stadium ops.
So
no, Matt.
I mean, that's the story I want to do. I mean, I need to inhabit the character. I need to find out the star of this movie.
Yep, there is a director of fan experience at the bottom. There you go.
Yeah. So that's That's the character I need to get to know. That's the person I need, because I need to know if what we see on the screen is, real life. I need to know if we're seeing a Hollywood version of what it's like to work in fan experience, and
I know.
and find love.
You know who you need to talk to about trying to get that situated.
I know. So
Right.
trust me, it's like I got a whole list of stories I'm working on, Nick, for training camp, and that is one of them.
I'm sure Luke awaits your call.
I'm sure he is not. So, well, now we dealt with the tough questions.
Yeah.
Now the really tough questions. I saved this one for you, Nick.
Okay.
This is from Luttrell. I don't remember us tackling it before because I don't remember answering it. But any favorite barbecue joints? Luttrell's traveling through the area and wants to know our recommendations. Now, first of all, I made the caveat here, which is that you go to any local barbecue in Kansas City, you win, because they're all fantastic. I mean, I've never gone to a bad local barbecue joint in Kansas City. So we're not sliding any of them. So that's just being said. But Nick, I mean, somebody's coming to town. What's your recommendation?
Well, Latrell, here we're gonna take you on a little bit of a journey here. In my opinion, there's no one barbecue place that has everything that's perfect. Like each spot has each spot has its meal that if you get, it is really, really good. So, like, for example, Matt and I in the Northland have Smokehouse up here, which was at one point, I mean, that was kind of the Northland standard. And Smokehouse, in all honesty, the best thing they've got is the sausage that they slice thinly. Like, the sausage is really good. And their baked beans are fantastic.
Baked beans are the best baked beans in town.
Yeah. So, I mean, like that. And that doesn't mean, like, their burnt ends, or they got more char to them. They got more chew to them. So they're not as
they're kind of classic burnt ends.
Yeah, they're more the old school burnt ends. Now Q39, people love to hate on it because they think it's more highbrow and everything. But what Q39 has going for it is a handful of things. If you specifically go there to get the brisket and the burnt ends that come with it, like, they're the most tender cut of burnt ends and brisket you're gonna find that I've found in town. And so, I mean, like, that is what I gravitate towards too. If I want burnt ends of brisket, that's where I'm gonna go because of just how it's melt in your mouth level. The beans are gonna be more of like a kind of a sweet chili style. And then I like their garlic butter vegetables, and their carrot cake's fantastic. And then they do have good wings. They call themselves best wings on the planet, but they do have good wings. At Joe's Kansas City, the fries are great because of the seasoning. The onion rings are even better. The Z-Man is really what is, like, you're not going to get that at other places. You're going to get imitations of it, but you're not going to get that same level. Part of that is because of the provolone cheese, but also the onion ring is insane. Their burnt ends, they're good, but they're a little salty, and they're not going to be at the same tender level. They're like the in-between of what Smokehouse would be that Matt and I have had in Q39. So they've still got a little old school to them. They're pretty salty, and so you're gonna feel that after a little bit, depending on how much salt you've had in the day. But that's their, and then the corn, the seasonal corn they've got right now is just fantastic. Gates. Anytime I've gone to Gates, it's called like the half mixed platter, I think. That's kind of their best. That's kind of one of their best things. Their beans are going to have more molasses to it and kind of be thicker in that regard. Their potato salad is the best in town. Like, nobody touches them when it comes to potato salad. I don't know what all they do to it, but whatever they do to it with that and the pasta salad, I know that sounds weird, but if I'm going for a spot for that, like, that alone is what I'm going there for. And they have their little miniature sweet potato pies and pumpkin pies, and depending on the time of year, that's where I feel like they kind of set themselves apart. I've been to B&B's lawn side. They're fine, but like, I don't feel like I have to go there every time. The one in KCK, I'm drawing a blank on it, but I know.
Talk about slaps.
Yeah, because I know it's like squeal like a pig, but I couldn't remember what the acronym that they, if it was going to leave something off on it. The day I went there, I've only been there once because it's kind of out of the way from where I live. and it's not necessarily by where I work and everything. So for me, they had a lot of stuff in like aluminum foil. So like I was like, yeah, I probably had to get here when it's fresher and maybe I'll have a different experience on it. So I haven't. You know what? Maybe I'll go back during vacation coming up here. Who knows? Give it another whirl, but I have to get there a specific time. But I really I want to try Chef Jay's. There's a place called Hangers up by the KCI airport I want to go try. And then there's another spot that I've got on my list that I'm intrigued by down in Northtown. So there's a handful of spots, but and then Arthur Bryant's, I haven't been to the original in a really long time. I think I went to the Speedway one. I don't know if it's still at the Speedway. And then they used to have one over in the casino. And so, I mean, it wasn't, it didn't, the casino one, when I ate, I was like, it's okay, but I know it's not like the original. The original is probably on a different level. And I haven't gotten down to the original because I'm not really down much down at 18th and Vine. I haven't really got to go down there yet for stories to be able to kind of just get that one there type of thing. So Matt, that's for me. How about you?
That's pretty good. That's really detailed, good answer. The one in Northtown, would that be Hogjaw?
It's one that they have two down there. Hogjaw is one of them, and there's another one down in Northtown that's kind of
Wolfpack. Is that the other one?
Maybe. I got them written down here.
I've not been to Wolfpack. Hogjaw is very nice. I mean, it would be in my good lunch places. It's kind of that kind of a vibe and everything. I assume they're open for dinner too, but it's a good lunch place. Smokehouse. I mean, first of all, it's Northland pride, so there you go, represent. But Smokehouse has the best side dishes of any barbecue place in Kansas City for my money. The beans are number one. If you like creamy Southern coleslaw that's not vinegary, it has the best coleslaw in town.
I forgot their coleslaw is
the corn nuggets are absolutely out of this world. If you like deep fried chunks of battered corn, which every God-fearing American should, I know the Jack Stacks cheesy corn is tops for a lot of people. No, the corn nuggets Smokehouse number one in my book. So that's my recommendation. I mean, I've had more Smokehouse than any other barbecue in town. So, I mean, I had a reputation there once, Nick. So
yeah, they did know you, if I remember correctly.
They did know me. When I started dating Nancy, and I would order something, she wanted a salad, and I showed up to pick up my order, and the guy behind the counter said, I don't have your order. And he's like looking around and says, can't find it. And so he's like, what's on it? And said, oh, it's the chicken and salad. And he's like, oh, that's the problem. Derrick doesn't order salads. So that's why I couldn't find my ticket. He had it right there. Just like, that's not mine because I don't order salads. But one you did not mention, I will co-sign on every place that you did mention, and I'll even add one more dish, because at Q39 the pork belly appetizer is fantastic. That might be one of the best single dishes on a barbecue restaurant in Kansas City. I'll throw in, for another lunch place, LC's Barbecue is also an incredible lunch place. I'm sure they have dinner too, but I don't know if I've ever been there for any other time than lunch. It's a lunch place to me. So that's a good choice. But Char Bar, that is probably one of my favorites. I mean, I put Char Bar right now in my rankings ahead of Q39 and ahead of Joe's. I'm that big of a fan of Char Bar. And I don't know. I don't know about the one in Westport. The one in the Northland at Char Bar has got pickleball courts. So, if that's, you want some entertainment, you can add that to working off your barbecue afterwards or something. But their wings are fantastic. Love their sauces, their rubs. They do a lot of things good. That's probably that. And that might be my number one overall barbecue restaurant right now. I mean, my rankings do change from time to time based on my thoughts and everything and feelings. So, but can't go wrong with any of those, Luttrell. I think
I totally forgot Jack's Tech, and that's the closest one of my work.
There you go. Classic Kansas City barbecue. I mean, classic Kansas City fine dining barbecue.
So if you're wanting wings, they have good smoky wings. My favorite thing there is their Arkansas Topper, which is grilled chicken with a little brisket on top of it and cheese, Colby Jack cheese on it. But yeah, like you said, their sides, I mean, you're not going to go wrong between their cheesy corn, the beans, the coleslaw, all that stuff, and then their carrot cake cupcakes are just insane. So, yeah, you can, like I said, you can find something everywhere, but there's not one place that, hey, I want to get all these and just go to one spot. Like each one's got its own kind of signature meal or signature meals that are like 2 or 3 that if you go in there, this is what you get and you don't forget it type of thing.
I think we have effectively covered the barbecue scene in Kansas City. So we could do an entire episode on it, but
we kind of did.
Yeah. So I just have to pull that segment out, for anybody who wants some barbecue recommendations. We'll just make that clip available later. So I love the question. I had fun with the question, but this is the peak end of the NFL offseason when we're talking barbecue, because just a couple of weeks, we're not going to have time to talk barbecue. So, yeah. Pano, can the NFL and NFLPA negotiate contracts for later years or retirement clauses to get more of their money to make top free agents stay with their teams instead of chasing money all the time? That's an interesting point, Nick, to me, because, I mean, that was obviously what the franchise tag system was really designed to do, was to help make sure that you didn't have veterans leaving their teams and were staying with them. But I mean, the franchise tag doesn't really do what it was intended to do. I mean, to me, the franchise tag now pretty much just tries to keep a hold on salaries. I mean, it's not really doing its intended purpose of keeping players with teams anymore. I mean, it's really just to kind of make sure that a team either can control a player's salary or control their destination and get a return back for them. Because how often do we see players with the franchise tag actually stay with the team? I mean, how many times, do we see it that you tag a player just for the opportunity to trade them or, keep them under a cheaper control than you would be for a season or two for the long term?
In some ways, I think the franchise tag is doing what it was actually intended to do.
Maybe not what the players hoped that it would do.
That's why the NFLPA is the NFLPA. One plays chess, the other plays checkers.
Well, and I mean that's the other part of it. I mean, there's a lot of things about the NFL salary cap that's good, and I think creates parity and makes this league exciting and makes it entertaining. It means and makes it so that the worst team in the NFL is a lot closer to winning the Super Bowl than the worst team in Major League Baseball is to winning the World Series. I mean, that's just the reality of it. I'm not sure it's perfect, but I wish that there was a way that I don't have the solution though. I mean, I don't know a way to make sure that players get paid without having to change teams and as much free agency as there is. I mean, I would love for big name players to stay with their teams forever. I mean, I'd like for, the Chris Joneses and the Travis Kelces and to be able to stay with their team forever, but also the Nick Boltons and the Creed Humphreys and the Trey Smiths. But it's not the system that we have, Nick.
Well, I mean, here's kind of where the heart of it is, and this is what it comes down to, is there's a lot of players on our roster that don't always have the self-awareness of where they are in the overall rankings of a position. So they think that they're the best of the best when maybe they're the 10th, 12th, 13th, but they want to get paid like number one because everybody wants to keep moving the top dollar up to that level. So that's where you get the problem to where players like, well, like take Brandon Ayuk right now. Like Brandon Ayuk he's clearly asking for more than the 49ers think that he's worth. And he's still trying to probably catch a certain players' number and do the same as what they are. And 49ers are like, hey, you don't have that level of production right now. So then, he has something go viral where he says they don't want him back, and that's not true. They're offering him something. And so, it's just like, whether agents need to push the dollar up. because they got to get their client max dollar, so they get their return on investment for being that player's agent, but then also driving up the market and selling to other potential recruits. Hey, this is what you can be. This is what I can do for you. This is what I did for him. He didn't make a Pro Bowl, so you come do this. This is fine. So at the end of the day, the guys who get paid the most, the Christian Kirks of the world, are because a team was desperate enough to do it. Because like somebody like Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce and even Chris Jones, the Chiefs paid top dollar when they had to keep great players, to keep this the chance for a three-peat going. So I mean, like, teams are gonna pay for specific guys. The Vikings made the smart move when they chose to pay Justin Jefferson over Kirk Cousins. Because Justin Jefferson is more valuable right now in the league than Kirk Cousins is, especially coming off an Achilles injury. So, but Trevor Lawrence probably got overpaid by the Jaguars. And there's a lot of other guys that definitely got overpaid. The Cowboys right now are literally saying they're not going to overpay Dak, despite the fact that he's had all the weapons he has in that scheme and that offense for as long as he has, and still hasn't delivered the NFC Conference Championship or a Super Bowl. So I mean, like, that's gonna come to a reality check here in the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the system works exactly as it needs to. I wish it worked differently some of the time, but I also at the same time I don't have a solution for it, Nick. So I don't know how to make it any better.
I think they're doing okay. I think their model's doing okay right now.
Stumble and Mumble has a fantastic and even points out that it's a dog days topic. So we're at peak off-season topic here, Nick. Players who left or signed with the Chiefs after rookie deals that initially weren't considered big moves, both good, like Drew Tranquill, and bad, Joe Horn leaving Kansas City. Showing my age, Joe Horn's a great one because Joe Horn just always seemed on the cusp of breaking out and becoming a great player. And then once he got to New Orleans, he did. But Nick, you're probably going to do better at this game than I will because my age and my memory is getting to me. I would probably have to sit down and look at this for a little bit, think about some players, both good and bad, that the Chiefs picked up. I mean, Drew Tranquill's a great example of a player from another team. But what stands out? Anybody to you? I mean, those are two big ones to identify right there.
I'm gonna have to look up draft history if we're gonna go back this far. So it's gonna take me a minute to get there. I mean, yeah, Joe Horn leaving. I mean, let's be honest. At the end of the day, it was best for his career because he wasn't exactly going to be working with the best of the best at quarterback until they decided to put Rich Gannon in that spot, which they never did. So, I mean, Rich wasn't coming off a rookie contract, but like letting Rich Gannon walk and go to the Raiders, like that's a massive one that, in my opinion, really derailed them and set them back overall. Carl's inability to get a quarterback, that always hurt him. So let me go by team. I'm gonna go by year here real quick. Sift all the way. I mean, through.
The one that jumps out to me, other than Drew Tranquill, I mean, immediately as a great pickup after their first round contract is obviously Priest Holmes. That might be one of the best free agent signings Chiefs period ever. But much less, for a guy coming off his rookie contract, just had 1,000 yard season. The question was, can he stay healthy? And then, of course, just comes to Kansas City from Baltimore and is just an absolute beast for 3.5 seasons.
Yeah.
I mean, that was an incredible signing. It was great scouting and perfect offense for him.
The one I would say the biggest one that they let go that they completely screwed up on would be Donnie Edwards. Whenever they let him go to the Chargers and he got reunited with Marty, if I remember correctly, back there.
Yep.
That was a bad one, and then they had to re-sign him back after they got rid of the whole Greg Robinson mess up that happened there. I'd say that's kind of one of the bigger ones overall. And then maybe when Bill Moss went to the Packers, I could see John Tate when he went to the Bears potentially. I mean, you could debate that one.
Gosh, but did they replace Tate with
John Welburn, if I remember correctly, from the Eagles?
Man, I was thinking it was better than that. So.
Kyle Turley came in at some point, but I I don't remember. Originally, I want to say they brought in John Welborn for it. Didn't work out, and then they brought in Kyle Turley after he came back from retirement, but he had a bad back, and he didn't play very long, if at all. And that's if I'm remembering my years correctly at that point, which I may not be.
And trust me, I get my years wrong, and I'm pretty sure my years were wrong. So thinking about who his replacement was, because he was the right tackle at that point, right?
Welborn was a right tackle. He was like a right tackle or right guard with Philly, and then the Chiefs got him, and then they put him at right tackle, but at some point they may have kicked him into right guard.
I was thinking Tate was right tackle at the end.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Tate was he was the right tackle because Willie Roaf was left tackle.
Yeah. And that's what I was having in my head, but it was Willie Roaf replacing him, but that's not true. Willie Roaf just replaced him at left tackle. Mm-hmm. Tate flips over to right.
Mm-hmm.
So, gosh, and that would have been in the era where, we had the Jason Dunn for right tackle campaign.
I was not a part of that campaign.
I know you wouldn't have been a part of that campaign, but it was a thing that happened.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at 2011 right now, and I mean, like, each person I'm seeing, that I'm like, for example, like Rodney Hudson, 2011. Rodney Hudson, he was coming off a leg injury. He didn't have a good year the following year. So I let him walk and let him go to the Raiders. And but I get that. And so like when I keep going through this list, I see guys that had injuries that they let walk for the most part. Because like even Dante Poe, whenever they finally give it up, they'd run him into the ground snap wise. So like I totally, at that point, the poor guy, his back was cooked at that point. And when he went to the Cowboys. And then Marcus Peters, they technically traded him away, but I mean, he brought him a lot of turnovers, but he also brought him a lot of headaches. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like when I'm looking through here, there's really not like most of it makes sense. So I hate to say it, but for the most part, it's just gonna be like Joe Horn and some of those other guys I mentioned that you could potentially debate.
Yeah, looking to see if anybody else have any good suggestions in the stream and everything. I mean, Priest to me is you'd hard pressed to come up with a better one than him. I mean, as far as an addition, that was a fantastic signing. Joe Horn Joe Horn's a good one. That was an unfortunate one because, like I said, that was a time when I mean, Joe Horn, you could tell had talent,
yeah,
but just needed the right situation.
Yeah, he needed the right offense and the right because that was a big part of Marty's problem in my book is like he never actually had other than O-line coach. Because dude, there was at one point Bruce Arians and like Howard Mudd were on the Chiefs coaching staff in the early 90s. Then they brought in West Coast and with Paul Hackett and then Jimmy Ray after him, and things just went sideways real quick. Even though Mike McCarthy was on the staff at one point there in the mid-90s. I don't remember if he's wide receivers coach. And then he started out as like an assistant, and then he became like I want to say he was wide receivers sometime around Joe Horn's tenure.
Yeah, I mean,
So McCarthy was quarterback, offensive quality control, Montana's first year, and then he got bumped up for 3 years to quarterbacks coach. Then he went to Green Bay, Saints, 49ers, and Green Bay head coach, and now Cowboys head coach.
Yeah, and I lost track of my windows here because I want to give credit to Mark here for bringing up Jared Allen. I was thinking about Jared Allen and then didn't because I was thinking that Jared Allen had actually signed an extension, but he was on the franchise tag, wasn't he? And that's when the Chiefs traded him because
he got traded because of the DUIs at that point. Like
and he definitely wanted out because the team was terrible at the time that he was here.
I think he would have stayed here, and I think he planned to stay here until he felt insulted by the offer based off what he had going, in terms of he felt his value was a lot more, and he's not wrong, but he put himself in multiple situations at that time that a team is going to hit you on in terms of what they're going to pay you. So that's where. But I mean, the trade, I gotta remember what all came back in that trade, because I mean that's the draft where they got Brandon Albert, Glenn Dorsey, Brandon Flowers, Brandon Carr, Jamal Charles, and I just can't remember how many of them were related. Like that was kind of their Tyreek Hill trade at that time, with a worse, significantly worse front office running the show at that point.
Yeah, let's see. I'm trying to shoot. He was on the franchise tag when they traded him. So, good question. Let's.
All right, so I got the number if you're ready for it.
Up.
The Chiefs sent Allen and a 6th-round pick in 2008 for the 17th overall pick, 2 third-rounders and a 6th-rounder. The Chiefs turned those picks into Brandon Albert, Jamal Charles, DeJuan Morgan, and Kevin Robinson.
Okay, so
you got 2 stars out of it, and then the other picks you already had, you got 2-star corners at the time, and Brandon Flowers and Brandon Carr.
Not too shabby.
Yeah. So I mean, like, you know, it was its own version of what Tyreek Hill's kind of parlayed into, just different eras.
Yeah.
And then Jared had his restaurant that never really actually took off because he got traded.
There you go. Steven Demon, thank you so much for the super chat. Appreciate you very much. And as of course, you move up to the top of the pile here. Several owners have paid for stadium themselves. If Clark was convinced to write a check for himself, would tickets, beer, and jerseys be so expensive that people couldn't afford them? SoFi Stadium has the highest prices in the league. And SoFi, I mean, is the exception to the rule. I mean, I'm trying to think of another stadium. I guess Jerry probably spent most of the money of his own on Jerry World. But SoFi is different. I mean, it is the exception. I mean, yes, Kroenke spent a ton of money on that. He's also expecting to get a ton of money back. And you're right. I mean, it's an expensive place to watch a game. I don't know about several. I mean, I think the only thing I would quibble with a little bit, and certainly if we're looking right now, I mean, Buffalo, the Bills are putting in almost nothing into their stadium that they're getting. I mean, the Buffalo and the State of New York are doing the bulk of that. We're seeing Charlotte, with the Panthers putting in most of the money to refurbish that stadium. I don't believe that the Titans are putting in a whole lot of money in Nashville. I mean, I think Nashville's fitting most of the bill for that stadium. I mean, when you get to markets like Kansas City, I mean, it's a different economics. I mean, you're just not in the NFL. Even you're still not getting, owners putting a ton of money in the stadiums themselves. SoFi is definitely the exception, and that's I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, SoFi is also the home to basically NFL Network on the West Coast. It's home to 2 stadiums. Kroenke, I guess, is charging rent to the Chargers. They get to have 80 concerts a year or something crazy like that. I don't know. I mean, that stadium is busy all the time, and like you said, it's an expensive place to see a game. I mean, yes, I would say that if the Hunt family had to build a new stadium completely out of their own pocket, then yeah, I would say that you probably are going to see prices go up significantly at a new stadium. But your mileage may vary, Nick.
And here's where I'd say that's where you're going to have a good person in charge of the business portion, to where you get concerts on a regular basis out there, or monster jams, or I don't know, this thing called a WrestleMania, or or something like that. Because if you look at what Indianapolis just did, like Indianapolis paid a site fee, and allegedly it's the highest. They won't tell you the number, but they tell you, it's the highest ever site fee to get the WWE to come there for a Royal Rumble, a WrestleMania, and also for I believe it's Survivor Series, or no, SummerSlam. SummerSlam. And so they're going to Indianapolis on multiple years to have pay-per-view events for that. So they paid a certain site fee to get that there. So, but I mean, they're gonna have to split part of the, WWE's gonna have to give part of that, whether it's parking or that or whatever. And then if you look down at Jerry World and just how much they do there, where the indoor facility gets used for high school football, state championships, and playoff games down at Jerry World. So, I mean, that's not as big, but then, Jerry World's had a lot of Copa America games down there and had, some of the qualifier games there as well. So, I mean, it's if you have the right business person and you have a climate controlled facility, you can do all that and you can make that money back to where, is there a certain time you need to make this money back if you're an owner? Like, so that's where you have that plan and you have it all together. And if you have the right, if you're the smart business person, you have the right business people with you that are going to get that venue full on a regular basis, even when it's not, NFL Sunday, then, that's whenever you can, you don't necessarily have to do that. And then they're also going to do studies where they're going to look at what's the average income of a Chiefs season ticket holder, like, or the Kansas City area, what's a reasonable cost here. And then there will be a point whenever Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and all of them have, their times ended in the NFL. And depending on where the Chiefs franchise is at that point, they may not be able to charge the same number that they can for a must-see Patrick Mahomes game because they don't have the marketable name, at that franchise at that point. So, I mean, right now you're living in an era where you're going to see a lot of championship success and all that type of stuff. But, there's going to be a point where, like, the cost is going to have to change because of what will be on the field down the road.
Yeah, and you mentioned Steam and Demon mentioned SoFi Stadium. I mean, the funny thing about that is that we usually talk about, it's public projects that run out of control and private projects that do better. SoFi Stadium was designed as a $2.6 billion budget. Ended up costing closer to $6 billion by the time it was all done. Kroenke had to go back to the NFL a couple of times to get loans to keep that thing going and get it done. I mean, it was an absolute debacle from the construction standpoint. I mean, it was late, it was overrun with cost, and I mean, it's turned out fine, it seems like, but then they also had like a few problems even when it opened. I mean, some cancellations, I think there were some leaks and all sorts of problems. I mean, the thing about, and we're talking about the Chiefs in Kansas right now, obviously. I mean, at least one thing that can be said about the deal in Kansas, if it gets done and if the Chiefs go there, with the star bond philosophy, I mean, you can have your debates about whether teams, contribute and what they create and everything of that nature. I mean, in theory, at least the thing behind the star bonds proposal would be that, Nick, that they're gonna pay off those bonds with new revenue, in theory, created by the project itself, that the project should directly relate to it. It's not, hey, are you creating a new taxes? I mean, are you creating new revenue? Sure. Is that going to other things? No. I mean, it's going to service the debt of the stadium. But ideally, what you're hoping for as a city is that project itself, with the tax revenue it generates, will pay off the bonds, and then you're going to get the additional, the economic impact that goes beyond that will be revenue created for the city. I mean, you're just hoping, that it doesn't lose money. I mean, some star bond projects have. The one over on the other side of the street at the Legends did not. I mean, it's the most successful star bond project that, Kansas has done. So obviously they're hoping the same thing would happen here, which is that, yeah, I mean, it's going to be publicly financed, but it's also being publicly financed from brand new revenues. I mean, that's at least a little bit different than what some other cities are doing, and what would have to be different than what happens on the Missouri side. I mean, Missouri does things a little bit differently. It would have to, I mean, maybe they could pull off something that's very similar to like KCP&L, which was, financed in a kind of a similar fashion, but was still backed up by public dollars. So I think it's, as much as I would like to say that I think that pro teams should pay their own way and pay for their own stadiums as much as they possibly can, I think there's just a reality that markets like Kansas City, the economics don't work. That, if you want to keep your pro teams, you're going to have to pay a little bit more. And you look at Nashville, you look at Buffalo, and that's kind of the going rate these days. Mm-hmm. So let's see where we were. Oh, Ozzy, who do you project to be an all-pro contention this year? Well, that's tough for me to say, Nick, because all-pro voting can be a little political. So, I mean, I thought Trent McDuffie was great last year. I didn't think he was going to be named all-pro because I just didn't think that he was going to get that kind of recognition league-wide. Could he be all-pro this year? Again, absolutely. I mean, it helps that once you get named all-pro, it makes it easier to get named all-pro again. So that's what I think could be an advantage. I mean, obviously, Patrick Mahomes is healthy. He's in the conversation. Travis Kelce, healthy, in the conversation. Chris Jones, same. I mean, anybody maybe then, Nick, break out that you might think could put themselves in the conversation if they have a good year this year?
There's only one thing I'm worried about personally this year. Can they accomplish a three-peat?
You just want the Super Bowl.
Can they accomplish the three-peat? That's the main prize. All the other little accolades and high fives and pats on the back and bonuses in their contract, all that'll work itself out if you can get to the three-peat.
Probably, I would just say one thing. I think there's probably one player that I can think of that I think probably deserves all-pro contention, and if they have a good year this year, and the Chiefs three-peat should absolutely be in conversation, and that's Justin Reed. I don't think he gets enough credit for the play that he does, but maybe that's just me.
Three-peat.
I know. You're only worried about the three-peat. Jimmy, let's talk coaches. It feels to me like Dave Merritt is one of the most respected coaches on the team. Can you each name a coaching minion, up-and-comer that you think is making a big impact on the team? Good question, Nick, because the Chiefs have a lot of young guys. I mean, for as much as their staff has been around for a while, they've got some young guys. I will tell you who I think is probably the biggest up-and-comer for me right now on this coaching staff. I think it's going to be Alex Whittingham, because he's a young guy who's been giving a lot of responsibility right now, because, we've talked about Ken Flagel before in the past, and, he was listed as, outside linebackers coach, but Ken Flagel was really kind of the right-hand man for Steve Spagnuolo. I mean, anything that Steve didn't cover on the defensive side, Ken kind of did. And I called him the shadow defensive coordinator, because one thing that he also did was that when Spags was working with the ones in practice, Flagel was running practice for the twos. And I mean, he trusted him. Spags trusted Flagel to do all of that, to coach the guys just like he would, to instruct them the same way, to make sure that the twos were just as ready to step up and play. I mean, that's the cliche in the NFL. Next man up, Nick. You got to be ready to play. You got to practice and prepare just like you're going to play that week. Can't take a week off. You got to be ready. I mean, unless things change throughout the offseason workouts, Kyle Whittingham's been playing the Ken Flagel role. He's been working with the twos. He's been the coach of the defensive coordinator, essentially, of that second team defense. And I think that shows a tremendous amount of respect from Spags, that he gives him that and trusts him with that. And some of it, sure, might be that you don't want to put that on the plate of some of your other guys, because your position coaches have a huge role. I mean, Joe Cullen's got his hands full. Brendan Daly, Dave Merritt, those three guys have their hands full with their position groups. But the fact that you're willing to let a young guy, and let's face it, Alex Whittingham also has the pedigree. I mean, Dad, Kyle, legend. I mean, there's a lot of, he ticks a lot of boxes, and he doesn't just tick the boxes as being a guy that's a coach's kid getting a chances. He's earned it. And I mean, Chiefs have some others. That's probably the one that jumps out the most. It's a young guy that you don't hear a lot about, that I think is on a coordinator, if not head coaching track.
Yeah, on the other side of the ball, I mean, here's the kicker for a lot of guys is we don't necessarily get to talk to the assistants of the position coaches, so like we can't really get a vibe for it. We can't really get them at the podium and that type of stuff. So I mean, you get a better vibe when you're able to talk to them at a press conference once they get moved to a position coach thing. So like Matt with his observations there, like that's how you can tell on that front. But guys I'm intrigued to see down the road when they get the chance on their own would be Porter Ellett, the assistant, running backs coach. Porter, he had a phenomenal speech for the Simone Awards when he got honored a couple years ago. And he's just a very humble guy. And it was a phenomenal story that NFL Films did about him. And Porter's, worked his way up from, I believe at one point being, Andy's Andy's kind of the coaching assistant that they have in terms of what they call it, and then worked his way up to, to where he's at now. So, I mean, you don't work your way up if they don't have respect for you. They don't find spots for you to keep you if they don't have respect for you. And then I'm intrigued down the road for Dan Williams. He's the assistant quarterbacks coach. He's quality control as well. That's another guy that I'm kind of curious to see what his rise will be over the years outside of, Alex that you talked about.
Yeah, you talk about that job. I mean, you're right. Porter had that coveted job of being the Andy Reid assistant, personal assistant. The guys who also had that job. I mean, Brett Veach, Sean McDermott. I mean, that is a stepping stone job to have. And yes, you hear Porter Ellett's name a lot about a guy who is, on a coordinator track, to be maybe an offensive coordinator one day. The bright mind, great personality, workaholic. I mean, ticks all the boxes. I mean, there's some good coaches on this staff, absolutely, and there may be multiple. I mean, there might be. I mean, obviously, I think that three guys we mentioned. I mean, Joe Cullen's not a young guy; he's older. I mean, Brendan Daly's still fairly young. Dave Merritt is still fairly young. Those guys both deserve to be defensive coordinators in my mind. I mean, they've earned it. They've done the job. I think they're absolutely in line for those jobs one day, and maybe more. Who knows? But I think we picked two good ones. Ellett and Whittingham, to me, I think are probably two of the names that you don't hear a lot that are kind of below the radar that probably stand out the most. And you can tell that by just the responsibilities that this coaching staff gives them. I mean, that says a lot about right there, even though we don't get to see them or talk to them that much.
Well, we see them from afar. We get to
exactly
chat with them.
Ozzy also asked, I don't think we addressed this. We've talked about it before, Nick, though. Do you think any extensions get announced before the season starts?
I mean, I'm sure they'll all have conversations and they'll try to get something done at some point if they can. But here's the reality, guys, and this is what I don't think a lot of people get. We're only thinking about it right now because it's just right before free agency begins next year. Brett Veach and his staff have probably already gone over this for about 2 or 3 years. They budgeted this out already. So there's certain numbers that they probably got in their mind. And the players' agents may be like, hey, well, we want this at this number. And then the Chiefs are like, well, we can do this at this number. And then you just kind of have to wait it out until the season ends, see if there's any injuries that happen or anything down the road that could occur that nobody can predict at this point. So, I mean, whether it does or doesn't get done, we'll see. But, I just want people to know, these have already been thought out well in advance. And, the drafts you see in advance are really kind of preparing for keeping things cost controlled if they need to. So, you can already kind of tell a year or two, for example, you and I have talked about many times, Hunter Norzad and then obviously, Hanson. They're there as insurance in case something doesn't get done with Creed or Trey or they become too expensive. So, I mean, and then whenever the Chiefs went and got Jamari Conner and Nick Jones, they're continuing to try to keep that pipeline going at corner so they don't necessarily overpay for multiple corners in the secondary.
Yeah. And, and I mean, to the point, Ozzy, have I heard anything directly? No, I mean, I haven't seen or heard of any smoke or any fire yet on any of the extensions possibly getting done. This is right now kind of a quiet time. I mean, there's a history of sometimes some extensions getting done right at the beginning of training camp. I think I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, Eric Fisher was a big one that got done at the beginning of camp. I almost want to say Jamal got done one year at the beginning of camp, but I could be mistaken on that.
Well, if you remember the backstory on that one, that was technically because his
car supposedly broke down.
the report got out that he had held out.
Yes.
And somebody from his camp made sure to call around to multiple newsrooms to make sure they were aware. And that got put out there. And then that became the story that Andy had to answer that day on arrival date. And everybody kept looking for Jamal. Would he or wouldn't he show up? And then magically an adjustment gets made to his contract within a day because he was the key of that offense at that time.
Yep.
Kelce was still on his way up. Alex Smith was Alex Smith. So like if it's Patrick Mahomes and Jamal Charles, well, who knows about if the Jamal thing gets situated, if there's enough weapons. But Jamal had the leverage at that point, and then when he was at the press conference the next day when it magically got adjusted, and Jamal said, yeah, his Lamborghini ran out of gas, so he had to walk his way up to Chiefs training camp and started laughing and smiling because he knew he was lying through his teeth.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'll stick with my 2 dates. I'm going to give you July 21st and September 3rd. If you're going to get anything done before training camp starts, that's one semi-deadline to get an extension done. September 3rd, 2 days before the season starts. That's when Tyreek Hill got done. That's my other soft deadline. After that, once you get past the beginning of the season, Chris Jones and the holdout was obviously an exception. It doesn't usually happen. It can, but those are two kind of lines for me, Nick, and doesn't mean that it won't happen after that. But those are two big dates in my mind that if an extension got done, I'm going to bet on being one of those 2 dates. But
and then the other one kind of becomes like a middle of October, because the other thing when looking at it from a general manager perspective is, do you need to go out and get anything right now? So is there something that you potentially need, like hypothetically, maybe the Chiefs go into training camp, see that, like you and I have talked about on the podcast this past week, that they need another running back, and they may have to go leverage something to go get that, or they need a defensive tackle or a defensive end, and they need to go leverage for that. They still need to have whatever cap room they potentially need in that regard to not only for this year, but maybe down the road and know budget wise where they need to be. And then once that budget's set for this year, maybe next year, the following year, then okay, the roster's set at this point, then they can go potentially, finalize whatever they want to contract wise in like a mid-October or, late October range. Like I think around the trade deadline is always another spot where you kind of do that, because the things you have to look for is what you still need on your roster to try to get to the three-peat this year. And then after you feel like you're settled is for the most part on that, then how much money do you need to create cap space wise for the following year with what you're going to do, budget wise, because then you take some of that money, if you lowered it, and you put that into the carryover, and then you use that to kind of help manage parts of it for the following year. So a lot of moving pieces is what I'm getting at.
It is a lot of moving pieces. Luttrell, enjoy your trip over here to Jeff City. Hope you get some good barbecue. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate the support completely. Brother Rick, also super chat, moving to the top of the line. Love it. Why are the Chiefs keeping Cornell Powell around since he's always on the practice squad? Nick, you want to take that one first, or?
No, you're the one that it's your thing. Man. You're the one that has the best theory on it.
I don't know if I have a great theory on it, but
your theory's pretty spot on.
But Cornell's never been in a game. Has he ever played a game in a regular season game?
I wouldn't be stunned if it would be like an end of the year type of thing.
I feel like he's gotten a practice squad elevation and gotten into a game or two.
Yeah,
is my recollection. 3 games, so he has done that. It was in 2022. So there you go. But I would say the thing about Cornell is that one, Chiefs like him. He's obviously, Eric Bieniemy famously said he's a beautiful soul. He's a good locker room presence. Everybody likes Cornell. He's not a bad player. He's not. Is he? But is he an NFL player? He'd probably be what you would in the Major League Baseball call a 4A player. He's just not quite on the competitive level of, being a regular NFL replacement level player, but maybe just a notch below that. maybe he'd be playing for some teams. I don't know. But one thing, I mean, the Chiefs do love about him is that his work ethic and his practice ethic are high, and he's got a high football IQ. He is, I mean, I hear it all the time from players on the offensive side, on the defensive side of the football, especially, the defensive side, and the backup quarterbacks too, that Cornell Powell is a great scout team player, that he takes his job seriously. He does a really good job of giving, defenses good, solid, honest looks. He works hard at it. He's athletic. So, even if he has something that makes him maybe not, at every weekend, 17-week football player, he's great on a practice field. He gives guys good looks. He's got speed. He's got the athleticism that he can mimic some of the top receivers around the league and at least give defensive players a good, respectful scout look. And do you keep around a guy just because he's good on the scout team? No. I mean, they got to be able to play football too. And Cornell can. But I don't know. I think there's part of that especially in today's NFL, the Chiefs, you get to, this year, hey, you get to have 17 players on a practice squad with the NFL exemption, international exemption. It's a lot of players. I mean, you can afford to have a spot for a guy or two that's just a really good scout team guy that's going to make your team better. And I mean, I think there's probably been some other players who fit into that category that have, had jobs for a while. And maybe that's why Cornell is here, because he does make this team better because he gives them honest looks in practice. I don't know. I know that this is, third year in a row, I'd say, Nick, Cornell Powell has looked really good in off-season workouts. And last year, I remember everybody was talking about Cornell Powell at the beginning of camp before the pads came on. And maybe that's it. Maybe it's just that when the pads come on, there's just a little something that he doesn't have. But tell you what, if you're one of the best practice players around, that's actually enough to make a job in the NFL. And Chiefs don't have to pay a lot of money for him. Practice squad players are relatively inexpensive. So like I said, I don't have anybody who's ever told me this. I'm just saying it just based on what I've been told from players over the years about Cornell and his practice ethic. And there have been a lot of defensive players who have given Cornell props by saying, hey, you know what? He mimicked this receiver this week and he did his job. You heard during the Super Bowls for sure, the last couple of years, that he did work that helped his team. So I don't know. That's my conspiracy theory, Nick.
It's not a conspiracy theory. It's an educated opinion. So, yeah, if you ever seen the movie Rudy, Rudy had certain things that he provided, even though he was an undersized defensive end and athletically wasn't up to par to be able to start for Notre Dame. And, in the movie itself, the coach just talks about the heart that he has and how he relentlessly tries to prepare the team for every upcoming game and all that type of stuff, even though he didn't get to dress and run out of the tunnel till the ending in the final game and everything and all that stuff. And that may be what some guys on practice squads are, is they're that guy that helps their teammates get ready. And if you have a good attitude and you have a good mentality and you have a good work ethic, there's teams that are always going to need that in their wide receiver room, whether you're the most talented athletically or not, so he fits into what they try to do.
He does. And I'll say this, when we get to go into the locker room, when we come in there, it's generally a break time for the players. They get, when we see the players in the locker room, most of them, it's either between a workout and during lunch period, something like that kind of thing, but it's time for themselves and everything. And some guys obviously will always be doing stuff. I'll tell you what, there's two guys over the last few years, I will say, that when I walk into the locker room and I see them, in a playbook or see them working on things, there's two guys that I've seen do that more than anybody else the last few years. And it's Cornell Powell and Chris Oladokun. Those two guys work nonstop trying to, know what they're supposed to do and know what they're supposed to do in practice that day and be ready. And yeah, that's a big deal. If you do that and you make the team better, you're going to have a job for a while. They're going to keep you around. So, all right, Nick, we're overdue for this, but you know what it is time for? It is time for lightning round.
Good. I think you've only got one question, maybe two.
I think there's a couple. Lennon, who was more likely to coach the Chiefs after Andy retires, Spags or Nagy?
I mean, it depends on when Andy's gonna walk away. I think that's the biggest part of that is when is Andy gonna potentially walk away? Because Spagnuolo, in my book, gives you a ton of continuity for the overall staff potentially. But I mean, also Matt Nagy is gonna be. Andy's teaching him everything that he knows as well from an offensive perspective. So as long as Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback, there's always that chance that Matt, is going to be in the running potentially for head coach. And then we'll see down the road here what happens, where Mike Vrabel goes down the road here, because I know he's with the Browns right now as a consultant or whatever the heck they're calling it. But I mean, see what other coaches are on the market when that time comes. But I mean, look, I think the Chiefs have a lot of, if you want to call them backup plans for if this happens, this person would be potentially the heir apparent to keep the continuity, understands the culture, all that type of stuff. So I think anything they can do to keep that going, they're always big on throughout their organization. But any chance they have to get better or make an improvement, I think they're always willing to do.
Yeah, I mean, I echo what you said. I mean, Spags and Nags are different generations. So if Andy coaches through his current contract extension through 2029, I mean, it's probably only one choice. I mean, if it's down between, if those were your only two choices, I think you probably go with Nags, because Spags would be close to pushing 70 himself at that point. So, I mean, I do think that the pendulum, I think, is shifting. I mean, I think we saw it shift a little bit last year. Last year was the first year that passing offenses took a step backwards. Scoring was down around the league. Offensive efficiency was down. I personally think it's the beginning of a shift towards more defensive-minded football, or at least that it's the defenses are finally catching up with the offenses a little bit. I think that there's going to be, I mean, and certainly you look at the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl last year with number 2 defense and playing some defense the year before that helped them get there too. I mean, I think you got to recognize that you got to play defense in this league too. You can't just throw the football and hope you stop somebody. You got to play defense. And at some point, I think some NFL owners are going to realize that, you know what, maybe we need to hire some defensive coaches, and maybe we need to play a little defense. Maybe we need to hire a defensive-minded, tough head coach and have an offensive coordinator that's, a Sean McVay disciple, but maybe there's only one Sean McVay, and we're not going to find the second one that's a 32-year-old offensive wonderkin. Maybe we need to go hire some good defensive-minded coaches and then get some good offensive coordinators. But there's a lot of good defensive coordinators I think would make good head coaches. I think Spags is one of those guys. And he might have worked in St. Louis if he hadn't, had to replace Pat Shurmur and ended up replacing him with who he had to replace him with.
And here's the final thing I say. Really, here's the question Matt and I are going to have to work on trying to figure out over the years, and this is for fans to pay attention to, is what makes Andy Reid so special is how he constantly evolves. He evolves to what his roster is. That's why they've had the success they've had. This is what he has from a player perspective, and this is the path they have to take to go win. And so once he knows that part of the equation, and that's what he's going to find out in training camp, then they're going to build around that, and that's going to be the way, whether it's on offense or defense, they have to approach how to go out and win. And on top of that, Andy knows better than anybody about team building. So it isn't necessarily just about the scheme, who's the best at the scheme here, the scheme there. It's about how does this head coach unify every single one of these players, keep these players in the same approach, keep their minds focused on the same things over and over again. And if you listen to Patrick Mahomes' press conference or Travis Kelce on Bussin' with the Boys that he did today, or you listen to him on New Heights, there's 5 catchphrases he says on the shows that are literally from Andy Reid. I heard him on Bussin' with the Boys earlier. I was listening to it, and he's like, you got to focus on what's real. Andy says that in like every press conference, but that's what rubs off on these players. And that's why these players play the way they do and have the success they do and don't have the drop off that they do for the most part, is because they emulate what Andy Reid does, because they respect what he's saying and what he's telling them. So that's why I'm saying, like, the next head coach, you don't necessarily want to be, well, he's just a great offensive minded guy that can score a lot of points. No, how is he as a leader? How can he unify a room? Does he have the respect of the room? Can he create the respect of the room? Does he have respect of the coaches? What type of culture does he want to create? What type of team building does he want to create? What is his vision for what this football team needs to be at each position? And does that match what the general manager is about? And is this person somebody that can see the big picture and understand this year on the roster, we're better at receiver, so we can attack this way. On defense, we're better at pass rush than we are at this. So how do we combine these together to win as many football games as possible? So I hope that's really, at the end of the day, I think that's the bigger thing that you're hoping Clark Hunt and Brett Veach are evaluating for down the road for whoever potentially would be the heir apparent.
I can't say anything better. I agree wholeheartedly. Lightning round. I knew I missed the Julia Gulia question. Do you think Butker could be a career-long Chief like Colquitt, or is he going to ask for too much money? I mean, I think, Nick, I think that's a little bit different philosophies of just who's running the organization. I think Brett Veach is willing to pay a kicker more than he is a punter. That's why I compared to Tommy Townsend. I mean, I think that the Chiefs were willing to let a punter walk because they feel like Dave Toub can coach up another punter. Harrison Butker's pretty special. I don't know if there's another Harrison Butker out there. And I don't know where Harrison Butker wants to kick. If I were him, I'd want to stay in a stadium that I know, although, they're going to be in Arrowhead for 7 more years, might be the rest of his career. I think I'd stay here if I'm Harrison, but what do you think, Nick?
Harrison Butker's been a lot of pressure cooker situations, and he's delivered them, and he's a part of the reason that they've had the success they have over the past 6 years and why they're all wearing Super Bowl rings. Remember, a handful of times he had to tie an Eagles game, he had to tie a 49ers game, and he's been in those pressure situations, and he's been able to deliver. There's a lot of kickers that don't have that level of, let's just call it steel. The unwavering ability to be able to focus on the moment and be able to deliver in high pressure situation moments. So Harrison's got that. You know what he is as a commodity. It's just a matter of whenever his leg starts to wear down and maybe he can't kick as far as he could. And then that's when they're going to have to start bringing in competition for him. And we'll know because they'll bring in competition for him. But he's earned every dollar on the football field that he's going to ask for because of how many times he has delivered. And as long as he continues to deliver, they'll keep paying him. Once he stops being able to deliver, they're going to bring in competition. And then that'll be your answer.
Lightning round. Casey Harold wants to know, and Nick, I may have you answer this question while I step away for a quick second. The Sunday ticket lawsuit is interesting for Kansas City Chiefs fans that live outside of the Kansas City market. Thoughts of you on the impact of the lawsuit and the future of NFL contracts, and kind of interested in what you think, Mick, because just about the broadcast future in the NFL, because we talk about it a lot, don't we?
Look, I'm not going to pretend that I followed the lawsuit very closely. So to know exactly what all is going on in that regard, I can't really tell you. I just know a thing that stuck out to me in the quotes from what little I've read on it was about potentially how each team wanted it to be a part of their own streaming service. And I'm kind of curious. I don't have the number on this, but like, what are the fees that hypothetically Paramount Plus gets for the, because they can only put like you only see the local game on their air. So for the most part, I'm kind of curious what would happen down the road from this, that maybe Paramount Plus gets to put all CBS games available and make it their own package on their own thing, if that's something that comes out of this down the road. If Fox, if they have the service that they're trying to put together, if there's something down the road that they would have to where all of their games create their own little package, or is there something down the road where all the networks potentially come together and they have a package that necessarily isn't just the NFL team getting that overall, but I think that's a much longer down the road type of moment, type of question about what they may do. Because I mean, streaming for the most part, you're kind of seeing it now with Netflix. Is, for example, like Triple H from WWE talked about how they're going to Netflix next year for their show, and WWE Raw is going to be on Netflix because he said that's where things are headed, and he said they can reach globally around the world now with Netflix. And in all honesty, what it probably does, and I don't know this to be fact, but I imagine it allows WWE to not have to deal with all the contracts overseas and other ways, so they can extend their global reach. Where the NFL is dipping their toe in right now with Netflix is what does the Chiefs numbers do in other parts of the world? Not just the United States, but what does it do in other parts of the world? From a demographic perspective, who are the ones who stream the most, who stream the least? Those are the answers they're going to find out on Christmas Day with those two games. And then that's going to be a number that I think a lot of people are going to evaluate, not just from the Chiefs, but maybe MLB, maybe the NBA wants to down the road, and everybody gets those numbers, and everybody kind of has that. Because, I mean, you got MLS that went to Apple TV. You have MLB that's kind of a part of Prime, but kind of a part of an Apple. They have the Friday night games on Apple occasionally. Then they just went from Peacock to Roku. But I think whatever can give, I know it sounds weird to say, but whatever can give each team more, not just necessarily team, but league, can get them more money down the road and less having to divvy up a pie as much, I think is what any team's going to go for.
Thanks for letting me put you on the spot there, Nick.
Yeah, even though I really haven't paid attention to the Sunday Ticket lawsuit.
I mean, Harold, I have been watching it. There was some interesting testimony from Roger Goodell last week. I don't know if you saw that, Nick, that he admitted that, the NFL network got out of producing games on Thursday night because they realized they weren't very good at it. That they had an inferior product compared to what everybody else was doing. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I mean, the basic nutshell of it is that the lawsuit is claiming that, fans have been ripped off because they've been charged too much for Sunday Ticket over the years. I do find it a little bit funny because, there was a narrative for a long time, Nick, that when it was with DirecTV, the legend was that they were always losing money on Sunday Ticket because they were paying more for the rights to the NFL than they were recouping. The only reason it made sense for them was because they had subscribers who were getting DirecTV who wouldn't if they didn't have Sunday Ticket. So that was the only reason it was profitable for them, but that the product itself wasn't. Now with Amazon, economics are a little bit different. And I think Amazon, if I'm not mistaken, just even put through with a price increase this week. There's two things about this lawsuit that I've heard that I think make it relevant for everybody in one way or another. And one, Harold, is like you're talking about people who live outside of the markets of teams that they want to watch. It's the only way that you can watch these games. And I mean, it is expensive. I mean, Sunday Ticket's expensive. There's no doubt about it. If this lawsuit is successful, and depending on appeals and everything of this nature and how long it goes on, I mean, the upshot could be that people get refunds, so it's a class action suit. The price coming down for the future would be very likely if the suit is successful. But the one thing I've also heard, Nick, is that if the suit's successful, one thing it might put an end to is the local broadcast rule, which is that the NFL makes local team broadcasts that are on streaming and on, cable are available over the air. Because the NFL would say, okay, tell you what, since we, can't sell this package anymore, we can't charge what we used to be able to make. We couldn't make this much money for it. We need more subscribers at a lower price. And so the only way we're going to get that is if we get away from putting local games in local markets. Hey, maybe that's an idle threat. It could very well be. But that's, at least to me, one of the things to watch for as the outshoot of this, is that if it is successful, is not just what the effect of it would be on Sunday Ticket, but what would be the effect on the rest of the broadcast deals. And you kind of, I know, talked a little bit about that and what the NFL is doing right now. I mean, all of that could be affected by this lawsuit. So I know a few years ago when nobody was concerned about it, but now that it's to the point where it is, there seems to be a lot of people concerned about it now in the NFL and what's going to happen. So who knows? Maybe they may be worrying about nothing. Maybe the NFL will win and we all go about our lives and people just keep paying a ton of money for NFL Sunday Ticket and it's all water under the bridge.
Or you can be like me and get NFL Game Pass and just watch the condensed games on your own free time.
NFL Game Pass is actually a pretty neat deal. It's
a much better deal.
It is a much better deal. Lennon, will the Chiefs need to change their name if they move to Kansas? I haven't seen anything that would require them to do so. I think the Chiefs would be opposed to anything that would require them to do so. Changing their brand would not be good for them. I don't think it would be good for Kansas either. If anything, I think that they would appreciate, people around the world knowing that Kansas City is also in Kansas too.
Yeah, I got nothing.
Joe, what is the sudden rush for all these stadiums around the country? Just NFL, it's Bills, Titans, Panthers, Jags, Chargers moved, Raiders moved, Browns, Bears also wanting a stadium. It's economics. It's how you make money in the NFL. New stadiums equal new revenues, equal new money. And there are new revenue streams and opportunities to put in the stadiums now that weren't around a few years ago. The one that threw me is Nashville, because that stadium is not that old. Nissan Stadium is not that old to me. And I know, the narrative is it's a dump. It was supposedly such a dump that, FIFA didn't even want to play there. But I've been there. I didn't think it was that bad of a stadium, Nick. But then I've been to the Oakland Coliseum, so I have, I have a comparative standard.
Yeah, what I'll say about a couple of them is with the Chargers, Rams, you wanted to get LA interested 24/7. So you wanted to have a venue there where two teams could be there, and it rotates back and forth. And for 17 weeks, no matter what, LA has a game going on, whether it's the Rams or Chargers. There's always somebody inside there for LA to have a rooting interest in that, and also maybe kind of help with the TV market overall. And you want that from a ratings perspective and from an advertising perspective. The Raiders, you're doing that because, one, you started to have a reason to have, the sports betting's kind of started slowly sneaking its way in, and having Las Vegas involved in that, it helps that cause and gives another rooting interest to why they should care out there in the casinos and out there in Las Vegas. But then on top of it, things I had heard behind the scenes was, as soon as the Raiders thing got announced in Las Vegas and the stadium got built, most of those luxury suites were already bought and paid for by casinos around the area for their VIP rollers. So, that makes sense in itself, because, you're guaranteed that level of revenue. And then on top of that, you combine that with what you can get atmosphere-wise there during the week, and fans coming in and making a road trip out of it and going to Vegas and everything. And, seeing the opposing teams coming into town for the most part and kind of taking over and everything. That made economic sense for more than just that team before the NFL in general. But the reason you're seeing all this combined, in my opinion, is because every time a new stadium is built, every time a new revenue source is built, the net worth of every single team helps rise. So this is one of those times where all the tide raises all boats, and the water raises all boats and everything. So every single team that can get a new stadium for all collectively raises the net value of every single team. And when a team gets sold, it raises that value to where the Broncos getting sold helped every single other NFL team in their net worth. And you're just going to continue to see that rise, and that's the reason that all that is built, because at the end of the day, there's going to be a point where the NFL collectively will probably be able to make $25 billion a year, if not more. And I know I've heard behind the scenes that's potentially a goal. So, and I don't think they're there yet, but you see these slow moves with Netflix and, the streaming and starting to tap into the streaming. So they make sure that they connect with a certain demographic to make sure that they're a part of that. And then they've always been trying to figure out a way to, be able to connect overseas and get more overseas interest in NFL and football overall. And I'm not just talking about, in England or Germany. I'm talking, collectively around the world, to where there's a way, if you can figure out how to make it popular in India and in China and Japan and kind of have them, and maybe Australia, it becomes a little bit more popular. All those dollar signs add up over time to get to where you're trying to go. So doing something like Netflix helps you reach those countries that I'm talking about down the road here. So if the numbers on Christmas equate to that, then guess what? That's going to happen more down the road. And then that's going to, more streaming partners are going to step up to the plate because Netflix had those numbers, and then they're going to see that too. And I remember, if I remember correctly, I just read an article recently that the going rate for a commercial on Netflix right now for the day of the game is like $5 million. If I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure it's $5 million.
You're correct, yes.
They give you 3 spots. You give you one in the pregame, one during the game, and one in post. You just got to decide, and they have different packages set up right now, allegedly.
That's a bargain compared to postseason games.
So, at the end of the day, like this is what it comes down to. It comes down to money, and this is what you're trying to do. You're trying to enhance the net worth of every NFL team to make the pie even bigger, and you're trying to get all this done before your next CBA comes to the table.
Yeah, and I mean, your oldest stadium in the NFL is Soldier Field, and they renovated that about 20 years ago, and obviously Chicago's trying to build a brand new one now because Soldier Field is 100 years old and shows every year of that age. Lambeau is second, 1957, but it's also been renovated 3 times in the last 20 years. Arrowhead is the 3rd oldest stadium. That explains a lot about why the Chiefs would want to entertain either renovating Arrowhead or moving to a new stadium. Bills are replacing Orchard Park. That was the 4th oldest stadium. 5th is the Superdome, which has undergone extensive renovations over the years. 6th is Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. That's gone under extensive renovations. 7, Jacksonville, amazingly enough, Everbank Stadium. 8 is Charlotte, and they're building a brand new stadium. 9th is Commanders Field. They want a brand new stadium. 10th is M&T in Baltimore. I mean, that stadium's only 26 years old. I'm sure it's just a matter of time before they want a new stadium. I mean, some of it is that there's a handful of stadiums that are old. I mean, Arrowhead, you get 50 years out of a stadium, you're actually in pretty good shape. I mean, anymore, teams think that the shelf life on a stadium is 25 years. I mean, and unfortunately, that probably says something a little bit about the design and the construction of them. I mean, I'm just going to be cynical here, but it also just says the reality, like what you said. I mean, there are revenue streams, there are advertising positions. Now, every stadium going forward wants to have gambling kiosk and have sports wagering built into them. Tell me where you're going to shove that in the Arrowhead Stadium. I don't see the spots that are free because I've been on the concourses at Arrowhead. Frankly, there's barely room to walk right now sometimes, so I don't know where you're going to queue 25, 50, 100 people to stand in line. They can play some bets. And I mean, the teams, the cities, they all want to make more money. And I mean, there's also some ego to it. They want their names on things. They want things done on their watch. I mean, they want to be proud that they brought something to their city. So, and that's why I'll give the Hunt family a little credit for this, that they really pushed keeping Arrowhead for 25 more years. They talked, and I don't think it was just a good game. I think it was genuine. Clark talked about wanting to honor his dad's legacy and keep Arrowhead alive and, try to make that as, keep it around for as much as possible, because let's face it. I mean, I think Clark understands that, if he stays in Arrowhead 25 years, it's going to be the next generation of Hunts that builds a new stadium. It's not going to be his generation. So he would be staying in Arrowhead Stadium would be him passing on a chance to put his stamp on the franchise not permanently, apparently for 25 years, because that's how long stadiums last now. But I mean, they would be passing on a chance. He and his brothers and sisters would be saying to the next generation, hey, it's you get to do that. So I actually give him some credit for wanting to try and stay in Arrowhead and talking it. I don't know if it's possible. I mean, now that you get the option of seeing what a new place would look like, I don't know if I was offered a new place to live, Nick, and I was told it wasn't going to cost me a whole lot of money. I mean, $300 million is a lot of money. So, but I don't know. I would probably move out of my house in a heartbeat because a new house would be really cool, Nick.
We'll see how it goes, man.
Well, I think we've exhausted Nick. We've exhausted myself. We certainly have exhausted the questions. So thank you all for once again joining us tonight. Nick, thank you as always for your time, your patience, your graciousness for joining me. You are the absolute best, my friend. We are back on our schedule. So you will see 41 is the mic on Sunday.
What are we talking about this Sunday, Matt?
Oh, what aren't we talking about? No. We are going to be talking about the biggest moves, most important moves, our favorite moves maybe that the Chiefs have made in building this team that's going for a three-peat.
That is a big part of it, and it'll be, for those that are wondering, it is basically Matt and I have to size up what the moves are that made the Chiefs get to where they are today since 2012 when things were 2-14 level. What's happened since then that's helped the Chiefs get to where they are?
Now I have to see if there's a challenge and I can find something they did before 2012 that was important to today.
Well, no, we're starting at 2012, like the end of 2012.
I know. I just wanted to create a challenge.
Yes, there was two things that were key that didn't happen that led to this. One was hiring Pioli. that helped. And then him treating Todd Haley like a puppet.
And hiring Todd Haley. Those were two big moves.
He wanted somebody he could control. And then not being able to sign Peyton Manning.
Well, that was like 20. When was that? That was 2012, wasn't it?
It was, because it was a very big thing that offseason.
I forgot about that. Yes.
Yep. It was a very big thing that offseason that allowed an opportunity. Remember, Romeo almost got charged with the tampering because he mentioned that at Indianapolis at the Combine, the house of Peyton, the house that Peyton built. He basically mentioned how, yes, they'd be interested. And then that turned into this thing. Clark Hunt went on CNBC or MSNBC, done one of the financial shows and talked about how, yes, they'd be interested in Peyton. And I know there were conversations, but for some reason it magically didn't work out, just like Jeff Fisher didn't work out and some other things didn't. Like Shanahan didn't work out, all those little things that magically just didn't work.
Can't imagine why Peyton Manning didn't want to come to Kansas City and play for Scott Pioli.
I don't know, Matt. But those are the moves before 2012 that allowed Peyton to basically go to the Broncos, let them have success there. Then the Chiefs always had to try to compete for second place in the AFC West during their playoff run initially. Then when Peyton finally threw in the towel because he was cooked at that point, then that's when the Chiefs took over the AFC West. So that initially started it, and Pioli bottoming out the franchise allowed the Chiefs to go bring in Andy Reid, and then all the dominoes that we will talk about on Sunday go from there.
Yeah, I have a feeling that the signing of Andy Reid will probably be pretty big on our list.
As it should. As it should. Technically, the biggest signing before that, though, then since you want to go back that far, is probably Mark Donovan.
Yeah, that was a huge one too.
Mark Donovan was a very big one that doesn't probably get the recognition it deserves for what helped land Andy here.
I completely agree. It is absolutely true.
So, Matt, I think that hopefully that helps answer your question. You asked here. That's a sneak peek about what we're talking about. If you're excited, say in the comment section that you're excited for 41 is the Mic podcast, where we go down this journey and down this road. And you can put in what you think. Exactly. Share what you think are the big decisions and moves that this team made that has helped to build this potential dynasty. At this point, you gotta call it dynasty. See where it comes on the list. Not potential anymore.
Not potential. You don't have to win three in 3 years to be a 3-5 can be a dynasty.
I mean, think how many Super Bowls if we go and break it down, how many times teams have been to Super Bowls in a certain window span, and then how many times they've won. The Chiefs are right there.
Oh yeah, I mean,
there's the other ones that went back with other teams that went quote unquote back to back.
I will absolutely agree with that. That this right now, the Chiefs, you can put what they have done in the last 5 years against any stretch of any team in 5 years, 6 years,
especially any that had back to back.
And if they three-peat, I don't think that there's another 6-year stretch of any team.
Right, and then at that point, it's just can the Chiefs sustain the success that Belichick and Brady did? That becomes the next question for that entire time.
The only thing that I think that the Chiefs will never be able to pull off, I shouldn't even say it. I'm going to say it, Nick. I shouldn't say it. Andy Reid's never going to date a 24-year-old cheerleader.
Well, Matt, this is my answer at this point. I left a promo for you if you need to run it on our way out the door here.
Now that I've ruined my friendship with Nick, here is the 41 of the mic promo. Thank you, everyone. We will talk to you on Sunday and then see you back here next Tuesday. And what inappropriate remarks I will say. Thank you all. Take care. Have a great week.
All things Chiefs right here. 41 is the mic, a Chiefs podcast on your home of the Chiefs. Listen now wherever you get your podcasts. Also available to watch on KSHB 41's YouTube page.